The grand hall of the Vayani royal spire shimmered under the light of 3 moons, their glow filtering through the crystalline ceiling. The air hummed with the low murmur of diplomats, their voices blending with the soft chime of floating drones carrying trays of exotic delicacies. Among the gathered elites, one figure stood out not because of regal attire or alien grace, but because he was the only human in the room. Captain Jace Veldon adjusted the high-collared jacket of his security uniform, his sharp eyes scanning the crowd. He wasn't supposed to be here. Not really. The Vayani Empire had little respect for humans, seeing them as little more than clever apes with a knack for survival. But when the princess's usual guards had fallen ill from a rare toxin, Jace's mercenary unit had been hired as temporary replacements, a last resort, a slight against tradition. He didn't care. The pay was good. His gaze flicked to the center of the room, where Princess Lyra stood, her silver-marked skin catching the light like liquid metal. Taller than most humans, she moved with an effortless elegance, her long fingers gesturing as she spoke to a group of diplomats. Unlike the others, she didn't sneer at the human guards. She didn't even seem to notice the difference. That made Jace wary. A soft chime sounded in his earpiece. Perimeter secure, came the voice of his second-in-command, Rin. No threats. Detected. Jace didn't relax. Something felt off. Then movement, a flicker near the arched entrance. A Vayani servant, clad in the plain robes of the lower caste, moved too quickly for someone just delivering refreshments. Jace's hand went to the pulse pistol at his hip. Too late. The servant's sleeve dropped, revealing a compact plasma caster. The weapon wind as it charged. Jace didn't think. He lunged. The bolt of superheated energy struck him square in the chest, searing through armor and flesh alike. Pain exploded through him, white-hot and consuming. He hit the ground hard, his vision swimming. Screams erupted around him. Boots thudded against the polished floor as guards rushed forward. Through the haze, he saw Lyra standing frozen, her violet eyes wide, not with fear, with something else. Recognition. Then she was at his side, her cool hands pressing against his burning wound. Her lips moved, but he couldn't hear the words. The world dimmed. The last thing he felt was warmth, not the scorching heat of the plasma, but something deeper, something alive. And then darkness. When Jace awoke, it was to the soft glow of bioluminescent vines curling along the ceiling of an unfamiliar room. He inhaled sharply, expecting pain, but there was none. His hand flew to his chest. No wound, no scar, just smooth skin where there should have been a gaping hole. You're awake. The voice was melodic, layered with an alien resonance. Jace turned his head to see Princess Lyra seated beside him, her silver markings duller than before, as if drained of light. What happened? His voice came out rough. You died, she said simply. For a moment, Jace sat up slowly, his body responding. Too icily for someone who had taken a plasma bolt to the heart. That's impossible. Lyra's gaze didn't waver. Not for us. A chill ran down his spine. He'd heard rumors about the Vayani whispers of their ability to heal wounds that should be fatal. But those were just stories, weren't they? Before he could ask, the door hissed open. A tall Vayani woman stepped in, her robes adorned with intricate sigils. High Priestess Vera, her golden eyes locked onto Jace with undisguised fury. You should not be here, she spat. You should be dead. Lyra rose, her voice calm but firm. He saved my life, and you defied the sacred laws to save his. Varys, hands clenched. Soulweave is forbidden with outsiders. You have tainted yourself, tainted us by binding your essence to this creature. Jace's breath caught. Binding. Lyra didn't back down. Then the laws are wrong. Varys' expression darkened. This is not over. As the priestess stormed out, Jace met Lyra's eyes. What did you do to me? She hesitated, then touched her own chest. I shared my life with yours. Now for a time, we are connected. Jace didn't understand, not fully, but one thing was clear: whatever she had done, it had saved him, and it had just made him the target. Jace stared at his reflection in the polished metal surface of the chamber wall. His chest was smooth, unmarked, no trace of the plasma wound that should have killed him. He pressed his fingers against the skin, half expecting pain, but there was nothing, just the steady beat of his heart, alive. Against all odds, behind him, the door slid open with a quiet hiss. He turned to see Princess Lyra step inside, her movements graceful but slower than before, as if carrying an unseen weight. Her silver markings, once vibrant, now looked faded, like moonlight behind clouds. You should rest, she said. Jace snorted. I just got back from the dead. I think I've had enough rest. A faint smile touched her lips, but it didn't reach her eyes. The body heals faster than the spirit. He crossed his arms. What exactly did you do to me? Lyra hesitated, then gestured to a low bench near the wall. Sit, I will explain. Jace stayed standing. I'd rather hear it now. She sighed. Very well. Among my people, there is a rare ability called Soulweave. It allows one to share their life force with another to heal wounds that would otherwise be fatal. Sounds useful. It is forbidden. Jace raised an eyebrow. Why? Because it creates a bond. she said softly. A connection that cannot be broken, and my people do not share such things with outsiders. A cold realization settled in his gut. So you weren't just saving me, you were breaking your own laws. Lyra met his gaze. Yes, Jace exhaled sharply. That's going to cause problems. It already has. Before he could ask what she meant, a sharp chime echoed through the room. Lyra's wrist device flickered with a message in swirling Vayani script. Her expression tightened. They're coming for you, she said. Jace tensed. Who? The High Priestess's enforcers. They will not let a human walk away with a piece of a Vayani soul. Jace's hand instinctively went to his hip, but his weapon was gone. Fantastic. Lyra moved to a hidden panel in the wall. With a press of her hand, it slid open, revealing a narrow passage. This leads to the lower levels. From there, you can reach the docks. Jace didn't move. And what happens to you? I will face the consequences of my choice. He shook his head. Not happening. I don't leave people behind. You must, she insisted. If they capture you, they will kill you. And the bond will make it. Painful. Jace hesitated. He wasn't a hero, he was a mercenary. Survival came first. But something in him, something that wasn't entirely him, pushed back. No, he said. We go together. Lyra studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Then we must move quickly. They slipped into the passage just as the door to the chamber burst open behind them. The sound of armored boots and harsh voices followed, but the twisting corridors of the spire were a maze, and Lyra knew every turn. As they ran, Jace felt something strange, a flicker of warmth in his chest, a whisper of emotion that wasn't his own. Fear, determination, Lyra's feelings. The bond was real. They reached a service lift, and Lyra keyed in a code. The door slid shut just as their pursuers rounded the corner. Jace leaned against the wall, catching his breath. Where now? The docks, Lyra said. There's a ship waiting. It will take you off-world, and you. She didn't answer. The lift descended in silence. Then, without warning, it jerked to a stop. The lights flickered. Lyra's eyes widened. They've cut power, Jace cursed. Of course they have. The emergency lighting kicked in, casting the lift in dim red. A distant clang echoed through the shafts. Someone was coming. Jace looked around. Then, up there, a maintenance hatch in the ceiling. He jumped, shoved it open, and pulled himself through. Lyra followed, her movements still fluid despite her fatigue. They crawled through the narrow space, the sound of pursuit growing louder below. The shaft branched, and Lyra pointed to the left. That way leads to the outer hull. We can climb down. Jace didn't like the idea of dangling over a drop, but he liked the idea of being captured even less. They emerged onto a narrow ledge, the wind howling around them. The docks sprawled below, ships coming and going like glittering insects. Lyra pointed to a small vessel near the edge. That one? It's prepped for launch. Jace sighed the distance. We're jumping. She nodded. They leaped. For a heart-stopping moment, Jace was airborne. Then his boots hit the ship's hull with a metallic clang. He grabbed Lyra's arm to steady her, and together they scrambled to the access hatch. Inside, the ship's systems hummed to life as Lyra input commands. The engines roared. Jace dropped into the co-pilot seat. You sure you know how to fly this thing? Lyra's fingers danced over the controls. I was trained since birth. The ship lifted off just as enforcers spilled onto the dock, weapons raised. A plasma bolt scorched the hull, but then they were away, streaking into the sky. Jace let out a breath. We made it. Lyra's grip on the controls tightened. No, we've just started. Behind them, 3 sleek Vayani interceptors broke from the spire, their engines flaring. The hunt had begun. The stolen ship shuddered as another plasma blast grazed its shields. Warning lights flashed across the cockpit, bathing Jace's face in an angry red glow. He gripped the armrests of the co-pilot's seat, his knuckles turning white. Can this thing go any faster? He shouted over the roar of the engines. Lyra's hands flew across the controls, her silver-marked fingers moving with practiced precision, not without overloading the thrusters. Behind them, the 3 Vayani interceptors closed the distance, their sleek forms cutting through the atmosphere like knives. Jace watched on the rear display as one of the ship's locked weapons. Incoming, he warned. Lyra jerked the controls hard to starboard. The ship lurched violently as a plasma missile streaked past, exploding in a fiery burst that rattled their hull. Jace single quotes S stomach flipped. Nice flying. Lyra didn't respond. Her breathing had become labored, and the markings on her face pulsed. Faintly, Jace felt a strange tug in his chest. Not pain exactly, but a deep unease that wasn't his own. Naban, he could feel her exhaustion, her fear, and something else, a growing determination. We need to lose them before we reach orbit, Lyra said through gritted teeth. Jace scanned the control panel. Any weapons on this thing? Only defensive. Great. He leaned forward, studying the terrain display. What's that? He pointed to a massive storm system brewing ahead. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. The ion vortex, it disrupts sensors and communications. Jace grinned. Perfect. Another missile lock alarm blared. Lyra threw the ship into a steep dive, the sudden G-forces pressing them into their seats. The planet's surface rushed up to meet them, jagged mountain peaks peering through the clouds. Jace's ears popped as they descended rapidly. "You sure about this?" "No," Lyra admitted. The interceptors followed them down, but more cautiously now. The lead ship fired again, this time hitting their left engine. The ship bucked violently, alarms screaming, shields at 30%. Jace called out. Lyra's hands trembled on the controls as she guided them straight toward the swirling purple clouds of the storm. Lightning flashed within the vortex, illuminating the cockpit in brief, stark flashes. The first interceptor broke off. Pursuit, then the second, but the third kept coming. Its pilot, either brave or foolish. "Almost there," Lyra whispered. The ship shuddered as they hit the storm's outer edge. The view screen filled with static, then went dark. The controls sparked under Lyra's hands. "Hold on," she cried. The world turned upside down. Jace's stomach lurched as they spun wildly through the maelstrom. He caught glimpses of the pursuing interceptor tumbling out of control before it vanished into the clouds. Then, sudden calm. The ship leveled out, its systems rebooting slowly. Outside, the storm raged around them, but they'd reached its eyrie. Jace let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "We made it." Lyra slumped in her seat, her markings now barely visible. For now, Jace studied her. "You're getting weaker." She nodded slowly. "Laban, it takes energy to maintain, especially over distance." A thought occurred to Jace. "Wait. If you're feeling this, does that mean…" He trailed off as a wave of dizziness hit him. Lyra looked at him with something like pity. "Yes, you're feeling it too now. The bond goes both ways." Jace swallowed hard. That explained the strange sensations he'd been having. Emotions that weren't his, impulses that felt foreign. "How long does this last?" he asked. Lyra hesitated. "Until one of us dies." The ship's comm system crackled to life suddenly, startling them both. A distorted voice spoke in Vayani, too broken to understand. Lyra's face paled. "They're still tracking us." Jace moved to the weapons console. "Then we fight." Lyra grabbed his arm. "No, there's another way." She pulled up a star chart, pointing to a blinking dot. "This is an old research station. Abandoned. We can hide there, recover our strength." Jace studied the coordinates. "And then what?" Lyra met his gaze. "Then we find out why they're so afraid of this bond." Outside the ship, the storm raged on, lightning flashing like warning signals in the dark. The abandoned research station hung in the void like a dead insect caught in a spider's web. Its once sleek hull was pitted with micrometeorite impacts, and entire sections had been torn open by some long-ago disaster. As their damaged ship limped closer, Jace couldn't shake the feeling they were flying into a tomb. "Cheery place," he muttered, gripping the armrests as the ship shuddered. Lyra didn't respond. Her breathing had become shallow, the silver markings on her face now barely visible. The bond between them pulsed like a dying ember. Jace could feel her fading, and with her, some part of himself he hadn't realized existed until now. The docking clamps engaged with a bone-rattling clang. The station's ancient systems took nearly a minute to establish an airlock seal. When the hatch finally opened, a gust of stale, metallic air washed over them. Chassis drew his sidearm, one of the few weapons they'd managed to salvage. "Stay behind me." Lyra gave him a look that needed no translation through their bond. "Don't be foolish," but she let him take point as they stepped into the derelict station. Flickering emergency lights cast long shadows down the corridor. Something crunched under Jace's boot. He looked down to see shattered glass and the skeletal remains of some small creature. The walls were streaked with strange dried markings that might have been blood or some alien equivalent. "Someone was here after the evacuation," Lyra observed, running her fingers along a series of deep gouges in the bulkhead. "Yeah, and I'm guessing they weren't friendly." Jace's grip tightened on his weapon. What was this place? Anyway, Lyra paused at a terminal, wiping dust from its surface. A Soulweave research facility, officially decommissioned decades ago after an accident. The screen flickered to life under her touch, displaying lines of Vayani script too quickly for Jace to follow. Lyra's breath caught. Jace moved closer. "What is it?" She turned to him, her violet eyes wide. They weren't studying Soulweave, they were trying to weaponize it. Before Jace could respond, a sound echoed through the corridor, the distinct clang of metal on metal. Something was moving in the station's depths. Lyra's hand found his arm. "We're not alone." The bond between them flared suddenly, flooding Jace with a wave of images. Dark corridors, rows of stasis pods, something moving in the shadows. He staggered, overwhelmed. Lyra steadied him. "The bond is strengthening. You're seeing what I remember from the files." Jace shook his head to clear it. "Great, so what's hunting us?" Before she could answer, the lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed them. Jace's pulse pounded in his ears. Then a faint blue glow, as Lyra's markings began to brighten. The light revealed three figures standing motionless at the end of the corridor. They were Vayani, or had been once. Now their silver markings pulsed erratically, their eyes glowing. the same sickly blue. Their movements were jerky, unnatural, as if their bodies were being controlled by something else. Broken ones, Lyra whispered. Failed experiments. One of the figures tilted its head at the sound of her voice. Then it screamed a sound that wasn't entirely organic and charged. Jace fired. The pulse round took the creature in the chest, sending it sprawling. It didn't stay down. Run, he shouted, grabbing Lyra's hand. They sprinted down the corridor. As the station came alive around them, more of the broken Vayani emerged from side passages, their movements becoming more coordinated as they gave chase. Lyra led them through a maze of corridors, her fading markings providing just enough light to see by. They burst into a large chamber filled with rows of shattered stasis pods. In the center stood a massive machine covered in glowing runes. The amplifier, Lyra gasped. They were using it to force soulweave bonds. Jace slammed the door controls. Behind them, the metal groaned as their pursuers threw themselves against it. Can this thing help us? Lyra approached the machine cautiously. Perhaps, if I can, ... Her words cut off as the machine suddenly activated, bathing the room in crimson light. A shockwave knocked them both off their feet. Jace's vision swam. When it cleared, he wasn't just seeing the room anymore, he was seeing through Lyra's eyes, feeling her panic, her memories flooding his mind. The bond wasn't just connecting them now, it was merging them. The door buckled inward. The broken ones would be inside. In moments Lyra met Jace's gaze, and in that instant, they didn't need words. They knew. Together, they reached for the machine's controls. The station shook as the amplifier reached critical power. The broken ones hesitated, then screamed, as one, collapsing to the floor as the overloaded machine sent a pulse of energy through the station. The last thing Jace saw before darkness took him was Lyra's face, her markings blazing like stars, her lips forming a single word. Remember. Jace opened his eyes to darkness. For a terrifying moment, he didn't know who or where he was. Memories flooded back in broken pieces. The station. The machine, Lyra's face glowing in the crimson light. His hands flew to his chest where the plasma bolt had struck him weeks ago. The skin was smooth, unmarked. A soft blue glow appeared beside him. Lyra. Her silver markings pulsed gently in the dark, illuminating her exhausted face. They were in some sort of storage closet, wedged between crumbling supply crates. The amplifier must have knocked them unconscious, and she'd dragged them both to safety. You're alive, she whispered. Her voice sounded different, deeper, with an echo of something that wasn't entirely her own. Jace realized with a start that he could feel her relief, not just see it on her face, but experience it as if it were his own emotion. The bond had grown stronger. What happened? He croaked. His throat burned like he'd been screaming. Lyra pressed a finger to his lips. Outside their hiding place, something scraped against metal. The broken ones were still hunting. Think it, her voice echoed. In his mind, don't speak. Jace's eyes widened. He hadn't heard the words, he'd felt them. Yes, Lyra's thoughts responded. The amplifier changed the bond, deepened it. A loud crash shook the corridor outside. Jace instinctively reached for his weapon, but it was gun lost in their mad dash. Through the station, Lyra's hand found his. Her skin was fever hot. We have to move. They're drawn to the bond's energy now. Jace nodded. Together, they crept to the door, listening. The scraping sounds had moved further down the corridor. The station was worse than he remembered. Walls were scorched from energy surges, and strange black veins pulsed across the surfaces like creeping vines. The amplifier's explosion had done something to the place, awakened it somehow. Lyra led them through the wreckage. Her markings dimmed to near invisibility. Jace noticed she was moving differently, more sure-footed, her steps perfectly silent. Then he realized with a shock that he was anticipating her movements before she made them, adjusting his own steps to match. The bond wasn't just connecting their minds anymore, it was synchronizing their bodies. They reached a junction where 3 corridors met. Lyra hesitated, then suddenly yanked Jace backward as a broken one lurched into view from the left passage. The creature was worse, up close. Its silver markings had turned black, spreading across its skin like cracks in glass. Its mouth moved soundlessly, head twitching as if listening for something. Jace held his breath. The thing was barely 2 meters away, then its head snapped toward them. Lyra reacted first. Her hand shot out, and to Jace's astonishment, a pulse of blue energy erupted from her fingertips. The broken one crumpled to the ground, convulsing. Jace stared at her. Since when can you do that? Lyra looked as surprised as he was. I shouldn't be able to. A chorus of shrieks echoed through the station in response to the energy burst. Dozens of scraping footsteps converged on their position. Run! They sprinted down the right corridor, their movements perfectly in sync. Jace could feel Lyra's panic mixing with his own, their shared adrenaline making them faster. The corridor ended at a shattered viewport overlooking the planet below. No exit. They're coming, Lyra gasped. Jace scanned the room desperately. His eyes landed on a maintenance hatch in the floor, barely large enough for a person. Here, they pried it open just as the first broken ones rounded the corner. Jace shoved Lyra through the opening before dropping in after her, pulling the hatch shut behind them. Darkness. Then Lyra's markings flared to life, revealing a narrow service tunnel. Jace's hands were shaking. What the hell was that back there? The energy blast. Lyra leaned against the tunnel wall, breathing hard. The amplifier, ... It didn't just deepen our bond. It changed it, evolved it. She looked at her hands like they belonged to someone else. I think we're becoming something the Vayani were afraid of. A distant thumping came from above the broken ones, searching for them. Jace swallowed hard. We need to get off this station. Lyra nodded. There's a shuttle bay on the lower level. If we can reach it, ... She didn't need to finish the thought. Jace could feel her plan forming in his own mind. See the station. Schematics as if he'd studied them for years. They moved through the tunnels, their connection growing stronger with each step. Jace realized with growing unease that he could no longer tell where his thoughts ended and Lyra's began. The tunnel opened into a large chamber, the shuttle bay. Or what was left of it. Most of the small ships were destroyed, but one near the far wall looked intact. Then the lights came on. A dozen armed Vayani soldiers stood in formation, weapons trained on them. At their center stood High Priestess Vera, her golden eyes burning with triumph. At last, she purred. The abominations revealed themselves. Jace stepped in front of Lyra. We're not what you think. Vera smiled. Oh, but you are. You're exactly what we feared. The first of a new breed. Her gaze shifted to Lyra. Did you truly believe Soulweave was just about healing, Princess? It was always meant to create weapons. And you've given us the perfect one. The soldiers advanced. Jace felt Lyra's hand slip into his dot. As one, they pushed. A wave of blue energy erupted from them both, slamming into the soldiers and sending them flying. The shuttle bay trembled. Lights shattered. Vera alone remained standing, her robes whipping around her as she raised a strange device. You cannot escape what you are. Lyra grabbed Jace's arm. Now they sprinted for the shuttle as the station began to collapse around them. The last thing Jace saw before the hatch sealed was Vera's furious face, her lips moving in what might have been a curse or a prayer. Then the engines fired, and the dead station fell away beneath them, its secrets burning in their wake. The stolen shuttle hurtled through space, its damaged engines leaving a shimmering trail of ionized particles. Inside the cramped cockpit, alarms blared relentlessly. Jace gripped the controls with white-knuckled intensity, his hands moving in perfect sync. With Lyra's beside him, they didn't need to speak every adjustment. Every course correction flowed between them effortlessly through the bond. Fuel cells at 12%, Jace muttered, reading the display, even as Lyra thought the same numbers. Her silver markings pulsed in the dim light. We won't make it to neutral space. Behind them, the wreckage of the research station still glowed from the explosion, but their victory was short-lived. On the scanner, 3 new contacts appeared. Vayani warships emerging from Lightskip. Jace's jaw tightened. They're not giving up. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, then reached for the navigation console. There's another way. The star chart zoomed in on a sector, marked in ominous crimson, the Forbidden Zone. A graveyard of dead ships and forgotten battles. Jace raised an eyebrow. That's suicide, or our only chance. Lyra's fingers flew across the controls. The energy distortions there will hide us. Masked the bond's signature. A proximity alert shrieked. The lead warship had locked targeting scanners. Jace didn't hesitate. He slammed the thrusters to full power. Hold on. The shuttle lurched violently as a plasma burst scorched past their wing. The warships gave chase, their sleek forms cutting through the void like predators. Lyra's markings blazed as she focused. Suddenly, Jace felt a strange pressure building. Behind his eyes then, a pulse of blue energy erupted from the shuttle, disrupting the warship's targeting systems. Jace gasped. Did we just? Yes. Lyra sounded as shocked as he felt. We did. The bond was evolving faster now. Jace could feel Lyra's abilities merging with his owner Vayani, senses blending with human instincts to create something new, something powerful. The shuttle plunged into the Forbidden Zone. Strange energy currents made the whole groan in protest. Dead ships loomed out of the darkness, hulks from 100 different species, all victims of whatever lurked in this sector. The warships hesitated at the zone's edge. Then, one by one, they turned away. Jace let out a shaky breath. They're retreating. For now, Lyra's voice was grim. They won't risk losing more ships, but they'll be waiting. The shuttle drifted through the graveyard of vessels. Jace studied the scanner, then pointed to a particularly large derelict, a human colony ship from the looks of it. There, we can scavenge parts, maybe even fuel. As they docked with the ancient ship, something strange happened. The moment Jace's boot touched the metal deck, a jolt ran through the bond stronger than anything before. Images flooded his mind. A Vayani fleet, burning. A human ship crashing. 2 figures, one human, one Vayani reaching for each other across a battlefield. Lyra staggered, clutching her head. You see it too? Jace nodded, breathless. What was that? The bond ... It's showing us the past. Lyra's eyes widened. This is where it began. The first contact between our species, the first Soulweave. They explored deeper into the derelict. Following the strange pull of the bond, in the ship's ruined command center, they found a sealed chamber. The door hissed open at their touch. Inside lay 2 skeletons, 1 human. 1 Vayani, their bones fused together, where they had died embracing. Between them rested a strange device, pulsing with faint energy. Lyra fell to her knees. The first bond, Jace approached cautiously. As his hand neared the artifact, the entire chamber lit up with holographic records, a history hidden for centuries. The truth unfolded before them. The Vayani hadn't always feared Soulweave. Once, they had celebrated it as a bridge between species, but when their leaders saw how it made equals of different races, how it threatened their hierarchy, they outlawed it. He erased the records. Started wars, to bury the truth. Lyra's hands trembled. All this time, we were never meant to be enemies. The artifact glowed brighter between them. Jace felt the bond surging with new strength, not just connecting them, but anchoring them to something greater. A legacy of unity their peoples had forgotten. A new alert sounded from the shuttle. Jace checked the scanner. More ships incoming, but not Vayani. Human vessels emerged from Lightskip, a ragged fleet of merchant ships, scavenger craft, and retrofitted warships. The Resistance. Lyra met Jace's gaze. They're here for you. Jace shook his head. For us, the bond thrummed. Between them, no longer just a connection, but a beacon. The human ships hailed them, their messages overlapping in a cacophony of hope and disbelief. One transmission cut through the noise of familiar voice. Jace's old commander, Rin Veldine, is that really you? We picked up your signal all the way from the fringe. What the hell did you do? Jace looked at Lyra, then at the ancient artifact in their hands. He opened a channel. Something they tried to bury. He answered. Something that changes everything. As the human ships formed up around them, Jace felt the weight of what came. Next, the Vayani Empire would hunt them. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, there was hope. Lyra's hand found his. Through the bond, she didn't need to say the words together. That artifact pulsed in their joined hands, its light spreading through the derelict ship, awakening long-dormant systems. Across the graveyard of vessels, other lights began to flicker, echoes of old bonds, waiting to be rediscovered. The shuttles come crackled with a new message, this time, in heavily accented but unmistakable Vayani. We see your light, we remember. Jace smiled. The first sparks of rebellion had been lit, and the fire would spread.